welcome folks back into another episode of the NA podcast, aka Not Acceptable, whatever you want to call it. It's episode number 2, and we're breaking down what's going down in the player break. I'm Five, I'm joined by Paladin, and we got a lot to get into it. So you know what, before we even talk about everything, let's go ahead and set ourselves a 15-minute timer, because that's how we run. We run hot and heavy. We don't waste time on anything. We give you guys all the news in the span of an hour. So let's go ahead and set that timer. Let's get right on into this. Beforehand, though, any words before we begin?
Not really much. We're kind of scraping the bottom of the barrel with the amount of news topics that we have, but show must go on. We have a couple of weeks to get through. We got a lot of topics to get through because the train keeps running through and we gotta make our way to the Blast Fall group somehow, some way, and it starts here with the Mulligan.
Yeah, let's go ahead and check out our player shuffle as well. Initially, going into this is already the biggest surprise that we have of this player shuffle. We are taking a look at G2. They drop 2 of probably some of the best players, most pedigree players in the world. Alexi B hitting the bench again, and then Jax, who has always, it feels like, been on the chopping block for this lineup, finally gets the axe. Is it too early to make these moves, though? It's only been 6 months, and you're working with some of the best players in the world, Pally. Is Carlos playing a bit of a too fast of a game?
Well, straight up, they are all major finalists, right? Like,
yes.
Both of the guys that were cut. And that is always going to be something of a huge, tall task to say, okay, you know what, let's get rid of these players. It's going to be a heavy heart to get rid of these players. But look, I think the fact of the matter is there was always going to be a little bit of a role clash. Not role clash, but more a philosophy clash between Alexi B and Xtaz, and maybe even a little bit of Nico. And I think that dispatching of Alexi B might just be to reorient the ship and actually have a vision of where they want to go and actually start contending for titles out the gate. Because on paper, right, G2 was definitely supposed to be contending for titles, and they frankly weren't able to. Like, other than Katowice, it's been disappointing result after disappointing result. And to me, I think that them actually taking a look at the IGL problem, that seems completely reasonable to me. There are some good players on the free market that are actually very interesting to take a look at. I know we'll discuss about it in a little bit,
sure,
but I think that the supportive element of Jax being missed out, I don't know about that one. That one has me a little bit ropey. I'll say that much.
I think the biggest thing is, even going into this, I don't think the Alexi B question of who's going to replace Alexi is that much of a question. We kind of have our group of players, which, hint, hint, we've already said it. We're going to dive into it a bit. But I think who's going to take over the reins for Jax in an international team, because there's not many good role players as someone like Jax. That's the biggest issue when I look at a team like G2. I think, generally said, his individual level has been, tanking in some ways, but I think Jax can still find form, and, I think he can still take over games in some respect. I think he still has that in it. Maybe we're reaching the tail end of it. Maybe Carlos said, I'm tired of waiting and I'm going to boot this guy. But let's be honest, who are you going to bring in, Carlos? So that's a question for another time. Moving down the pipeline, though, who's going to replace them is the biggest question. Pally, you got all the sources.
Yeah, there's so many different reports about who's coming in, who's going out. You have LMBT saying that tabseN and GodB are joining. Xtaz is also getting the chopping block. We've seen that tweet that tabseN and GodB put out recently. Expect the unexpected, yada, yada, yada. But over on Overdrive stream, he's mentioning that Alex is going to G2. You have Simples potentially stating that G2 is interested in Boomich. Like, there is this Big Three IGL that, like, conundrum, we'll say right now, and I think that it's tough to really say who we can really pick in the out of this set of 3. In my opinion, I think Alex would work very well with this lineup, just because he's dealt with big egos before, coming from that French scene, and I think that he could try to handle a lot of big individuals on G2, because that in and of itself is an art, and I think that that's going to be quite difficult to do. Especially with G2, who have been having troubles of their own.
I think I want to do one thing and bring up a tweet from, of course, the HLTV Confirmed podcast was running earlier on, and of course, Pimp brought up the discussion of, oh yeah, tabseN's gonna be the one to shut up Nico, and this was the very interesting reply coming up from Nico. If we'll go ahead and
Banger.
try to bring this one on stream. It will look very scuffed, but all right, we'll go with it anyways. If for those in audio or for those who are looking at the screen because it's kind of cut off, you are reading too many HLTV threads. Pimp CS:GO. Is the ego a big deal when talking about this lineup here, Pally? Is that really an issue between any of these players? Like maybe we overblow that. It's like, oh, Nico, easy. Me, Nico, me, Kenny, me, op. You know, that whole debacle that went down early last year. Is that really an issue, or are we just overstating this?
To me, it's just like I'm saying this based off of what I am seeing before me, as like you see the roster moves that are happening, and the kind of the wake of what Nico is leaving behind him everywhere he goes, and every organization he enters,
Mhm.
and great players somehow turning into shadows of themselves, and roles not necessarily looking all that comfortable. And to me, as an outsider, that is something that I'm just going to have to say is that I think that there is a bit of a star power and overarching power that Nico has in all of these lineups, and
Mhm.
maybe it might not be as much as we're probably stating, but I think there is at least some merit to that in how he occupies his time in all of these rosters.
Sure. I mean, okay, let's keep moving along, as I think G2 have commanded too much of our time here. Next up, of course, that's going to be Spinx going over, at least rumored to go towards Vitality. We talked about a little bit of this last week, but I don't think we really hit on the impact that this could potentially have to the lineup. Is this a big deal, and can this potentially change Vitality's flow, at least as a team? They've been struggling as of late, similar boat to G2. Is this the move that will make or break them?
Well, I think role-wise, it definitely works out in the long run. I mean, he has always been a very solid CT anchor. That's something that I think Vitality desperately needs. And if we want to, if you want to talk just plain in theoretical terms, yeah, of course, this is like an HLTV forums dream, right? Where they're like, yeah, get me all the top 5 players and put them on a team. But the thing is I think that if you look at it in the more intangible sense, I don't think it's going to work. It feels more like a band-aid of a situation rather than a full-time fix for this team, because frankly, I don't think the firepower is the biggest issue on this team. I think it is just the overall cohesion of this team and overall like just how they occupy themselves in the communication aspects of the team. And it doesn't look like they're at what I think a top 5 or a top 10 team needs to have in this day and age. I think they're sorely lacking that. And I think that's a bigger issue. Bringing in a third culture, man, that has me really, really worried.
I mean, at least from what I've seen, Spinx is a very level-headed player, but and
Definitely.
also, I mean, even in the at least what I think he might be a good addition to the team. But you say that they don't really need firepower. I think I'm on the boat that they are kind of lacking in that department. ZywOo is no longer, I would say he's not a superstar. I wouldn't say he
He's a
isn't.
far cry.
He's a
Yeah.
far cry of what he was. He's still an amazing player. Don't get me wrong. He is still an S tier player. But the thing is it's no longer ZywOo and friends for this Vitality team. They can't bank on just ZywOo taking over games and just overrunning the opposition. They can't do that anymore. They need a second person who can do that. Spinx is that man right there, Pally. That's why I love Spinx on this roster.
Yeah, I mean, it definitely can work. I want to see it in action. If they are committing to this, that's basically saying we're not committing to any sort of French remnants anymore. We are going full international, and it's no longer going to be like a French plus Dane thing. It's going to be a complete international roster, and I think that is also an exciting prospect. And I just want to start seeing more consistent results out of them. And hey, Spinx is a consistent player, so at least we'll get a bit of a show from him at the very least, and maybe that'll boost ZywOo's
Mhm.
individual form as well, because that's also a very, very important thing for this team. And there's no way they will ever be a top 5 team if they don't get that ZywOo that we've been waiting for quite some time.
Yeah. Let's go ahead and bring it on over. Can chelo revitalize Imperial? For the guys over at Imperial, they had their dream major run. They attracted a crowd of over 500,000 Brazilians, if that rhymes just a bit, to watch them play, to make their dream run into the legend stage, and nearly I believe. Am I dreaming too much? But close to getting into the
I thought they had
playoffs.
a 2-2 game against Copenhagen Flames,
Correct.
right?
They did. Yes.
They
Yeah. Yep.
eliminated
Yep. Yep.
Cloud9. Yes.
Yep. My brain needs to just reactivate. Yes, they came so close to making it to the main stage, and they had so many believers behind them. Ever since then, though, their win percentage has been below 30%. Now, dropping FNX, a reasonable drop. Can chelo, though, fill the potential void and take Imperial to new heights?
So yeah, I will say that he is a great individual, and pound for pound, he is a better player than FNX. There's no way to like say anything but that. But the thing is that you call this thing the last dance, right? You bring in FNX back, and you say, hey, we're going to bring a roster together that captures the charm of the old roster that won 2 majors, and now we're casting aside the one guy that we made this roster for. Apparently, like when I've seen some Fallen interviews, they're like, yeah, we made this team because FNX has fallen under hard times. When we're a family here, want to bring him together and make sure that he stays together with us, regardless of how he plays individually. It doesn't matter. And now they want to bring in chelo. To me, it makes me think like, what's going on here, really? Like, is Fallen really being truthful with what he's saying here? I'm not really sure. I like this chelo move, but I don't. What's the point of bringing FNX in here and then just booting him out as soon as possible, right? Like, I don't think that they have a vision here, and I think I heard a rumor as well that Peacemaker is also heading out the door. So it just sounds like pandemonium here, all things considered.
At the same time, though, I think chelo on the one hand provides some extra stuff that this team needs. I think they're behind
Oh,
on the meta.
definitely.
Specifically, chelo honestly has been he's done at least from what I've heard a bit of the calling since MIBR have gone through a couple bits of shuffles. I think he plays some of the more aggressive roles that MIBR really need, or MIBR had, and that Imperial need to be able to pick up upon. So for my money, I think chelo fits the void of FNX really darn well. But, well, we're starting to run out of time. We still got a couple more topics to cover. Let's move on down the pipeline as we see EPL beginning to wrap up their list. We see 3 more teams added in, some of the most notable being Cloud9, Spirit, and the Movistar Riders. Are any of these potential dark horses coming into EPL, as we are only just a couple weeks out?
I mean, I'm excited to see these guys back at a tournament. Spirit and Movistar Riders, especially because look, before this, they wouldn't be invited to Blast Fall. They wouldn't be at essentially any other events until Rio or the RMR cycle. And so, not having them to play against Tier 1, that would have been a huge blow for our scene, especially after what these teams were able to do at the major, as well as the Cologne event as well. So I don't necessarily think that they'll be dark horses to win the event entirely. But hey, I think they'll definitely be able to make the playoffs again. I think that's definitely a possibility. I think it's obviously going to be group dependent. We got to see if they get cast in those group of death scenarios or whatnot. But again, Movistar Riders, they love themselves a little bit of a studio environment. They went
Yep.
5-0 at last season's EPL. So it's definitely a good setting for these 3 teams to at least make playoffs, I'd say.
I would assume so as well, at least for the guys over at the Riders. We talked last week about, whether they can hold on to that momentum. I'm erring on the side that they can just a bit. I think they still have a couple more upsets laying in them and maybe another deep run. That's for sure. Are they going to beat the same beast to make it nearly to the grand final and, challenge some of the top teams in the world? Maybe not, but they can definitely pull some upsets. They can pull another EPL group stage, for goodness sakes, that they've already done this year. I think for the flip side, Cloud9, are they on a decline is a very big question to ask. I think Cloud9 have slumped in this last month since their Dallas win. Their last 2 events have been very flat. And I think similar scenes can be said about Spirit, although, I mean, some could say that there's still growing pains and that there's still room for growth at the same time. I'll give it. Movistar Riders had the biggest chance to upset, but from what I've heard from Innershine, the analyst of FaZe, he has full faith in Spirit. So I'm going to go ahead and take his word on that.
Yeah, I think C9 overall, I think they needed more of a break than any other team. You could see just the exhaustion in Nafany at the end of their Cologne run, and obviously he himself individually had a abysmal tournament, right? And that in and of itself is making me think that the attitude that he had towards the tail end of the season, you could just tell they all needed time off, and they have a very individually heavy mentality and the way they play the game. And if those guys aren't firing, if they aren't feeling themselves, it's going to be a rough go of things. So I'm going to err on the side of Cloud9 will be back in full force at EPL, and will do damage. I fully believe in this squad. I think they're a fantastic group of individuals. I'm
Sure.
happy to see their development. That's for sure.
All right. Well, I mean, are we out of topics? Have we seriously finally run out for just a bit? Any final words with the 15 seconds that we have remaining on this, on any other topic you'd like to talk about? Make it quick.
I don't know. I mean, well, no OG in EPL. That really sucks, man.
Yeah.
Can't wait to see him at Melbourne.
See ya, OG. Anyways, that's going to reach the end of the bell, so we'll go ahead and move this one on right over to the best region, folks. It's North America. Let's dive into the news that they got going right on down. We'll quickly set our timer. We got 10 minutes to talk about the topics that North America has on offer. So if I work this timer thing properly, we'll get this moving. First things first, in the pipeline here for NA, can Liquid be a top 5 team coming off of the player break? They themselves pulled off what some would say a miracle run at Cologne, making it to the playoff stage and actually make it in front of a crowd, for goodness sake, something that they haven't done for ages. Can they replicate some similar form? Can they be a threat in the next season?
I mean, I think that the big problems that Liquid had at this tournament were more so cohesion issues, in the sense that they had not drilled certain things properly. You could tell there are certain situations where players felt uncomfortable in their positions, and when I say uncomfortable, I mean like just a couple rounds here and there. I'm not saying overall. Like Elige clearly in these new roles felt much more impressive.
Sure.
You could see his rating look miles better than what it was previously, and you can tell Yekindar, he still had all the roles that he wanted. He was being able to allow Nitro to get caught up on the meta. I think that pound for pound, this Yekindar move makes a lot of sense to me, and I think that if you give them a little bit of time, they hit the ground running as soon as this player break winds down. I see them making all the way to the fall finals at Blast, and I think I can see them making it to the playoffs easily for EPL. Like, I have very high expectations for Liquid now, because I think this is one of the most tried and true North America cores that we've ever had, and I have a lot of faith in them. And then you add in Yekindar to boot with that. I think that you have a key recipe for success, especially with the fact that the meta was sorely lacking for Nitro and crew. And now you bring in Yekindar and you add in that little bit of outsider's DNA, which Nitro has spoken about before, that he wanted to integrate a little bit more slower paced European style.
Sure.
I think you got a great meeting of the minds here, and I think it's going to work out in the long run. I think a top 5 is possible, although it is pretty unlikely. I will say that.
Okay. At the same time, I think a big factor to this could be Nitro. I think, honestly, he's come back and looked like a reborn player, on all things said. I think he was looking weak. I think some time away from the game, his individual level is looking much better than what it was earlier on this season. So, all things said, or in previous seasons. So that's what I'm happy to see. Nitro can power this team to potential victory.
Yeah, no, I definitely think so. I mean, I feel like his time off in Valorant, he's kind of understood what his role is on this team, and that he has to be a little bit more supportive this time around. And he's not necessarily a star like he used to be, and he's made that peace with himself. And that in and of itself makes me happy that, there isn't going to be much biffing here now that we have kind of the roster that Liquid potentially wants here. And this all hinges obviously on Mr. Biden giving Yekindar all the visas, right?
There we go.
Let's hope that actually comes to fruition, and that this discussion and this run that Liquid had at Cologne isn't in vain.
Thank you, Joe. Anyways, moving down the line, taking a look back at locally here in North America. Brazilian Storm has been a term tossed around by a lot of North American players, as well as, I guess, spectators in the scene, as Brazil has traveled to NA, gone here, and competed. The biggest thing, though, is, and they've dominated, let's be honest, Pain Gaming, MIBR, TeamOne, Godsent formerly, now I guess we call them 00 Nation, have all come up, risen through the ranks, and come to dominate internationally. But Has NA finally grown, and are they able to challenge this talent? Is this Brazilian Storm over, or are we still in the midst of some more?
So we have a lot of developments in North American teams specifically. Like I think that ATK has gotten much better over time. They still had a little bit more time now to integrate Swisher into the lineup. I like the pieces that they have, and I think that they can do some good damage. Gaming Gladiators, they've always been on the fringe of trying to get some good results,
Mhm.
but they haven't actually been able to convert. And then you have we'll talk about Carpe Diem eventually, but they're also the team that have been on the fringes of success. Strife, they're going through their own issues now that they don't have stamina on the lineup. So
Mhm.
there's a lot of pieces here, like a lot of things that could happen for North America, where we have a team like an ATK, like a Strife, like a Carpe Diem, a 10 conference. But man, it's just like you can't count out teams like MIBR ever in this lineup. That I think that there's still a tier that MIBR is ahead of the pack. That
Mhm.
when I look at who's going to take that conference spot, it's like I it's hard for me not to say that it's going to be MIBR. Like, there's going to have to be some serious upsets here, all things considered.
I mean, MIBR losing chelo is such a big blow to their team,
That is
all things
true.
said, and they have looked brittle in this past season. They are not invincible. They didn't compete in playoffs, but I doubt there are some certain contenders within the ranks. ATK were looking good. And I think they can only get a little bit better, especially with Pain dropping Nithon. There are some
Yeah.
serious hits to these Brazilian units. Finally, NA gets to claim their own conference spot. It feels like it's been just quite a bit.
I know. It feels as though like there's enough chinks in the armor at this time around for some fireworks to happen. Like it's not. I don't think that our playoff bracket this year
Mhm.
is going to be as predictable as you might think. I think that we'll have a lot of twists and turns this season. That's for sure.
That's the talk of Challenger League. We continue pushing forward with another Challenger League topic as two Brazilian teams lose critical players. Barton has gone ahead and been spotted playing for TeamOne, formerly the IGL for the unit at age 17 back in 2019 through 2020. Barton was a key part to TeamOne's success, to even getting them out internationally. He got picked up by Godsent. He started performing well there, but now he finds his way back to TeamOne nearly 2 years after he was poached. Is this going to take TeamOne back to the next level, or is this going to be the same old mediocrity that TeamOne kind of has been screaming these last couple months?
So when we casted the closed qualifiers of TeamOne, we were talking about how there were some like just straight up aim duels just being like lost by TeamOne.
Mm-hmm.
Like they were just getting outclassed. And I think that's a tale that has been carried on for quite some time now. And they've finally broken the curse of this rotating fifth of IDK's spot. And now they finally let go of XNS and they bring in Barton. They try to go down in age a little bit. And I think that this is the right move. I liked IDK from what we saw of him. Very confident looking player. And Barton reuniting here, I think that this is also a good move. I've been wanting TeamOne to do a little bit more damage. They've always had a little bit of spice to them. We've seen them do damage a
Mm-hmm.
couple of seasons in a couple of seasons of ECL or back when it was called MDL or whatnot.
Yeah.
But I think that this team could do damage. I think they'll definitely do better than what they did before, right? Because they had to fight through the relegation this time around. They had kind of an abysmal season.
Yeah.
So this is, all things considered, I think this is a good move through and through for Barton and for TeamOne.
They had their worst season on record last season. There, I think things can only get better when you add a player like Barton, who's gotten himself so much experience underneath Taco. Surely this pushes TeamOne to a different level than what we're looking at. We only got a minute and 50 on the clock, so let's keep it moving as we're going to go ahead and dive into, well, the bad news bears. I guess some happier news as we just recently received right before the show started, but BNB dropped Swahn and Madcow. And well, for Madcow, he is now the player manager for Evil Geniuses. Congratulations to him. But removing Swahn from the ranks, is that gonna, and adding potentially a new opper, is that gonna make a shift? And if there's gonna be any opper, who should they add?
I think there needed to be a switch up for Bad News Bears. Like I've always loved Sheikh Zula and Spongy. Like they've always been very fun individuals to just watch. And I think that Shake has always been the sort of the godfather of tier 2 North American CS, always
Hmm.
fostering new talents. And we have so many in tier 1 now that have all been fathered in by Shake in some form or fashion. But and I have to say I've liked watching Momo and Pluto, and I think the main issue that I had was that AWP. He wasn't necessarily as impactful as I was expecting. And now, whether or not we have an actual next in line, well, that's tough to say. There are a lot of options, but are they the right options? I think they definitely need some switch ups. That's for sure. Because again, they're also in a very similar situation as TeamOne, where they had to fight through relegation after pretty recently, not recently, but having played in a cup of EPL, right, and not ever replicating any sort of result before beyond that. That has a bit of an issue for me that they haven't been able to replicate that. So maybe that third individual, that core of fraggers that they can bring forward,
Yep.
could be the next coming of Bad News Bears, because they've got a lot of good pieces again, but they haven't been able to find anywhere near as much impact.
All right, well, that clears out the best region segment. Moving right down along to the NA or EU, covering all the minor storylines going on around the Counter-Strike global offensive scene, where, of course, we have to pick between NA or EU. Not either one is good or bad. Come on now, Paladin. We can't pick regions here about that, but we're going through all the small news, so let's go ahead and jump into the first one. We'll quickly read this one off. New player break dates. CSPPA came up with some new stuff. People don't like it. What do you think about it, Pally?
So from what I've heard from all of this is that apparently CSPPA already previously reached out to these players and none of them responded. And so the people that actually did respond were the people that were in favor of it. So CSPPA were like, "Hey, this sounds good to us. Let's go through with it." And as soon as it dropped, that's when everybody on Twitter swarms in and they're like, "Ah, we hate these dates. We hate these dates." And I think yeah, I think it's a bit of an issue from both parties. There was a lack of communication on both ends. But I don't know. I kind of like these dates. I kind of like them. I like the major to be the last event of the season. I hope that happens. But that's just me. I'm gonna go with EU here. I might be ruffling some feathers here.
Okay. Pally making the controversial decision to pick up EU. For myself, I mean, there's nothing it feels like, picking up an NA player or anything along those lines. So, excuse me, an NA pick for this one. I mean, I kind of feel like I want to agree with Twitter in some respects, but at the same time, we're kind of missing the aspects of we're kind of missing some of the aspects that makes like the player break so good. I mean, earlier what we felt on during this year, ending on Cologne felt like the greatest feeling ever, right?
True. Yeah.
So ending on Cologne and having that grand final to end it. Of course, I know I feel like the season ending with the major feels right. I favor tradition rather than any changes. I don't think there was anything inherently wrong with these new player break rules, and all I think is it just messes with tournament organizer structure. And where the heck is Cologne going now? That's, I think, a big question. I'm gonna put my NA move to this one. I think it just really messed up with a lot of different people.
Fair. Yeah. Completely valid. I mean, I would also like to say that I loved the Cologne Grand Final, and I would love that to be the end of the season as well, because it's always been a great celebration down in Germany, and it is a pretty good send off for
Yeah.
Counter Strike as a whole. But let's move on.
Yep, keeping it moving, because we got things to do, places to see. Kick, okay. Mind the HLTV forum thread joke. Kick their team. Formerly a Bulgarian squad formed of, I believe, Dreamer and some remnants of the Wendigo core. Kind of like been playing second fiddle to Skade a lot of the time. Well, Paladin, they kind of only logged 2 officials underneath their name before they left the organization. You want to say anything about that?
Man, you got Victor on this team, you got Spellin on this team, Raftu, players in the Bulgarian team that have been around for like a while, And you'd think that these guys would like hit the ground running, you know, try to battle back against Skade. But 2 events with HLTV, man, it's just such a stupid scenario.
Envy.
Like NA every day of the week, man.
This
What are we doing here?
look. This is I when I look at this, like I'm wondering how much money they just burned. I think they had this team signed for like 2 months. Maybe they burned like 100 grand doing this. 100 grand US. This is giving me incredible envy vibes of, you know, signing a team, having them signing a team for like I believe it was like 8 months. They were under their brand and they played like 6 officials. Are you the people over at the Copenhagen Flames playing 500 maps in a year are over there crying, weeping, watching other people burn their money. Biggest NA move I've ever seen so far, maybe this year. We haven't even had, and it's episode 2, and I'm calling it probably one of the biggest NA things to happen this year. All right.
This is funny as hell.
What on earth are they doing? Next up, Urcast has returned back to NKT. Was playing on Cloud9 Academy's Valorant roster. I won't say it went very well for him, for someone who was actually checking up on him from time to time, but he's back. And honestly, one of the most pedigree players to come out of the Asian scene is back and competing in one of the most competitive Asian scene. Is this an NA or an EU, Pally?
Man, I'm so excited to see Urcast back. Like way back in 2017, this guy was doing work on Greyhound. One of the most reputable Mongolian players of all time, I'd say. Done a lot of damage on Greyhound. He went back over to Tiger in 2020, but then I think that's where he kind of made that jump off to Valorant around that time because COVID hit, Asian scene got hit, and we'll discuss.
I'm
about
sure
Asian
I'm sure a bag came to his doorstep too.
Definitely, I'm sure that was also on the cards. But I'm glad that he's back because look, I've always liked the way he's played. I like that we're at a turning point in Asian CS where things are starting to pick up again. International opportunities are starting to come over the horizon. Right. NKT is a solid team with some good potential. I'm going EU every day of the week. I'm excited to see my boy Urcast back.
I am excited to see Urcast back, but I'd rather see him, believe it or not, maybe on a different team.
That's valid.
Specifically, NKT, I respect every single player who plays under that brand. I believe that they're running with KNTZ, as well as Impression and some of the other guys on that squad. But it's been a little mediocre, and Zine specifically, from probably, I believe, the last active Korean Counter-Strike player. But they have some great players. They have some great tools to work with, but I'm not sure if it's mediocrity. I feel like they're playing second fiddle. I'm going to have to wait a little bit to see whether this NKT team can actually compete, or if they're going to still stay grounded by teams like Rare Atom and Tai Lu, who are really big, and IHC for that matter, who are also just dominating the Asian scene at the moment. I'm going to see some real stuff. For now, I will lean on the side of EU. Good news for Urcast, but I think IHC might come calling sometime soon. On to the next. LDLC. Oh boy, this has become the meme of the month here for the guys over at LDLC. Coming in with like, it's like the, I wouldn't call it Blueprint Project. Would you call it like the Tricolor Project or something like that? Tricolor Print? I don't know. LDLC signed like a 12-man lineup to their org. Is this a good idea? Is this a bad idea? Is this NA or EU?
I'll go with a French flag classic. I'll say it's a white flag here.
Okay.
That you would be raising here. What the heck are we doing, man? It doesn't work. Okay, it doesn't work. I don't want this. I don't like it.
I'll give you both NA and EU simultaneously, or I'll fade them in and out. Look at this.
All it's doing is making me go crazy, Fi. I can't do this. I can't. NA.
It's just it's like EG's Blueprint Project, but at Walmart. Is that NA or is that EU? This is an EU project. Are you kidding me? Look, this is EU. What am I talking about? 20 seconds left on the clock, and we'll run through to our final topic of NA and EU. Into the breach, adding Draken and Rusty. Two good Swedish players. NA or EU? Quick, quick, quick.
EU, man. Great to see Draken and Rusty back on a more competitive team. Savage wasn't really doing much, but hey, bring on ITB.
I'll take EU, and that's going to bring us to the bell. We're going to go ahead and move down because we have to keep this one moving, as well as, well, if you guys may have noticed, I may have forgotten to set the timer earlier on in this one. But for the audio-only listeners, I just shattered reality. So let's go ahead and bring this one down over to our WePlay Academy League preview. We've got some stuff to cover from the guys over at WePlay, as the 5th season is going to be up and running. Let me add an extra minute to the clock really quickly. Let's go ahead and dive into that, as season 5 of WePlay Academy League started. We've seen some great players come out of this league, and I think it's definitely worth keeping an eye on, as some of the biggest orgs in Counter-Strike test what they have in the depth of their roster. So, I mean, first storyline first. ENCE are debuting their academy. Is this a worthwhile move for these guys?
I think the Finnish scene has always been in need of an academy program. Like, there are a lot of young talents from this scene, and you can see even on Mouse NXT, you have Jimfat, and he's been doing work on that team. And there have been a lot of players like that on the SJ squads and the Havus of the world.
Yeah.
And I'm glad that they have such a system in place and they've gone through with this. And there are a lot of good players on this team that also have a lot to show for themselves. I'm really excited to see. How do you say his name? Juicy?
Yeah, he's gotten a lot of hype, all things said.
I'm excited to see this guy debut. Obviously, they were supposed to be young guys today, but they weren't able to actually field the lineup. So they got their first match win, quote unquote. But we'll get to see him tomorrow, I think. I think we get to see him tomorrow.
Yeah.
Sorry, no. We'll get to see him day after on Wednesday. But
yeah,
exciting nonetheless. I like what this lineup has. And, you know, it's always good to see more orgs invest into this academy program, because I think it's the future.
I think, I mean, I have some hype behind Juicy. I've heard from some of the Finnish people around the scene that he's a really good player and really well touted. So I'll give it to him. I think there's definitely some legs to this ENCE lineup. I am excited to see how they perform. Speaking of performance, Mouse NXT once again are here back for blood. And, well, folks, if you haven't been paying attention to the WePlay Academy League, don't worry. I can name all the 4 winners of the past 4 seasons in one team. It's Mouse NXT. They've won almost every single. I might be. Am I trolling myself here?
No, you're not trolling.
No, I'm not trolling. They have won every single season of WePlay Academy League. Are they here to win it again?
They're going for the 5-peat. There's no such thing as a 3-peat or a 4-peat for Mouse NXT any longer. It's the 5-peat. And I mean, this team, it's like, when is it going to be their time to play in a tier 1 team? Like, some of these players are, I think, ready for the next step in their careers.
True.
Like, I love Xerxin. He's been doing work for this team. Like, he's been an absolute animal. I think some could say that he could be a better replacement for JDC on Mouse proper right now. And that would be totally fine. I spoke about Jimfat before. He's always been killing it. That guy is also quite the pickup. Like, they've gotten some of the best talents in Europe, period, under lock and key in this system. And they can just make so much cash selling these players and individuals to other teams. But hey, while we're at WePlay Academy League, why not take a 5th title on the way out?
This is so unfair. It's unfair to all the other teams. I mean, even some teams are trying to pick up some tier 2 talent. I think there's definitely a couple debutants who are trying to dive into that realm, but I don't think there's anyone who's going to come close to hitting Mouse. I guess a couple of like the perennial teams, but look, they have their whole analyst team counter-stratting this guys, and they still can't beat them. I'm interested to see. I believe day 1 already went pretty swimmingly for them.
They smacked Eternal Fire Academy here, 16-2, I believe.
Yeah.
Just a battering. Oh, sorry, 16-7.
Still, no chance in essence.
Gross.
No chance. I think we can handily agree this is Mouse's tournament to lose. Next up, though, here is a debutante. It's OG Academy coming through with their lineup, and I'd like to read this one off really quickly because I think a lot of names pop out and they say, hey, this team can deal some damage. Specifically, Oxygen, formerly of Skade. You have Dementor, who's competed on some very good contender teams like Nasser from the Middle East, as well as in the Balkans region. Sound has been an incredibly underrated opper. Hey, that's my opinion, of course. And Merrick's, who's competed on times with Sprout. Is this team a contender for a title?
I think they can make it to the gauntlet stage for sure. I think that there are some really good pieces here. I like Oxygen a lot. I think he did some really good stuff on Skade. Probably not the right roster for him in that specific lineup. So having an academy lineup to kind of develop a little bit more, talk to the crew over at the OG roster proper. Having Crisby as well as your coach, who's seen and done a lot in the international space. I think it's a perfect lineup for him to develop. I think Marks was always very good on Sprout. He was very inconsistent, but he had some very, very good games over there at EPL when Sprout debuted there. So I think that there's some good bit of firepower on this team. Now, whether or not they can actually bottle in that consistency, that's what I kind of want to see. And I want to see whether or not there is a system in place to develop these players, because I want to make sure that this OG Academy thing isn't a flash in the pan and they're actually putting in resources to develop these players, because these aren't just pansy players. These guys have done some things in the scene already, and I want to see a little bit more from them and kind of develop so that they can get shipped on out to some tier 2, tier 1.5 teams, you know?
Yeah, I think genuinely said, Oxygen might be one of the best riflers you have at this event, period.
Yeah,
I think
I can see that.
from what I've seen from him on Skade, he has the ability to take over games. Admittedly, he was playing some of the worst roles on some of his former teams. Maybe if he can be freed up as a player, there's a lot of damage this guy can do. I'm really interested to see what this OG team can make of a player like Oxygen. Sound is generally said, I mean, compared to the competition here at the WePlay Academy League, a pedigree opper. I mean, just relatively said, he is a solid force, and he does have to be respected as a unit. If I was to compare him to absolutely anything, I would probably maybe if I was trying to compare him to a player, maybe I'd hand it over to a miniature Monacy in his own respect. And the way I frame it is he's a very flashy and fast opper. So I'm excited to see what he'll bring to the table here as the only Romanian representative.
I will say Romanians have been coming out hot and heavy.
That's
this
true.
Year. You got Long, so they're over there on Sprout doing work. You have Zello over there on Ecstatic. He's also putting in work. And it's all come from some form or fashion of the Nexus organization. I don't know what they're feeding them over there, but I am excited to see just more Romanian talent, because hey, the more countries in CSGO, the better. I'm happy to see more representation.
Yeah, awesome to see that from them. Let's keep moving along because we're reaching towards the later stage of our timer, as we do have Big Academy. Well, they came through today and absolutely just nuked their opponent 16-2 in Apex Rebels. Never had a chance. So is this their tournament that they finally break through? It's felt like every single season they've come within striking distance of making a deep run, even made it to a couple of grand finals if memory serves me correct. Can they finally break through?
Well, you got Keto on this team, he is just hungry to get back his main roster spot. This guy's been just fragging the hell out recently. And look, I think that this is the team that actually has the most reps next to Mouse NXT in terms of officials played and higher opposition played against. So to me, it's like they've gone through the reps of being a good squad, and a more cohesive squad. So I think out of all of the teams at this event, I think that you can at least put stock in a Big Academy and say, hey, this is the team out of all of them that have been putting in the most work. Now, whether or not they'll actually be able to convert that, that's another question. I mean, I don't necessarily think that they can. I think they'll maybe make it deep through the gauntlet stage, probably qualify for the final stage, but I think that'll be kind of just the capstone of Big Academy in Season 5.
I think one of the funniest things, though, is that Keto was listed as a player who's going to be on the books. Sky made his debut instead of Keto, formerly of Alternate Attacks, and he nuked his opponent. He came out and surprised everyone. I mean, maybe he is keto, but decided, yeah, I'm gonna go for a name change here. He dominated. Let's like quickly move through it. However, congratulations to Sky, but also, well, I wouldn't say it's a grim reminder here for two teams who really need to start pushing for results. Fnatic Rising and Astralis have kind of been at the bottom of the table for a lot of these events, at least considering the length of time that they've been with the WePlay Academy League. Is the pressure on finally in season number 5?
So these two teams have been around the block for WePlay Academy League for quite some time, as you were saying. And Astralis Talent, I think for the first two seasons they came 9th to 10th, or like dead last or something like that.
Yeah.
And I think the previous season they were actually able to do some damage. I think they still have some good players on their team. And even Fnatic Rising, like this team is actually pretty good themselves. Like you have Rogali doing work. I mean, I've liked watching Pebzor as well. Obviously having a little bit of a tier 1 stint. Timer's running down here, but I think that they have potential to do some work here. I think definitely pressure is on for them to perform because it's been quite some time that they've actually run through this rosters a couple of times.
Astralis Talent have made a lineup change in 8 months. That might change as we hit the bell. Finally going to go ahead and close out the WePlay Academy League, so you can tune in, I believe, every day. And they're running for about the next 2 weeks. So, I mean, check it out while you can. We'll probably keep you posted with some more updates. Next, though, we're going to reach our STONKS segment, our players that we're looking out for. This is all, we've picked this before we saw players play in the WePlay Academy League, but this is our kind of like event predictions going into this, and we'll jump into your pick, Pally, and go ahead and convince us why this man is the man to look out for.
Head trick, baby, Navi Jr. And quite fitting that our slideshow is also following suit with the Navi Blast Finals victory. But hey, this guy has been absolutely phenomenal to watch. He's been picking up the AWP recently, trying to pick up where m0NESY left off. Only 18 years of age. At season 4 of WePlay Academy League, this guy had a 1.2 rating, 8th highest rated player, and the team came in 9th to 10th. They didn't even make it to the next stage of competition, right? They didn't even make it to that high tier gauntlet. I think they were a low seed and they just get bombed out. But man, this guy's been exciting to watch. I think the whatever little that we saw at EPL, he had a couple of clutches, he had a couple crazy entries as well.
Mm-hmm.
I've loved watching this guy, and I hope to see just him do a simple m0NESY-esque show here in WePlay Academy League.
Yeah, me, always trying to forget to set the timer. We're good to go, as we'll go ahead. Currently 7 minutes down remaining here before we head into our overtime segment. And I'll jump into my pick for this one. Headtrick is also transitioning into opping, so respect to that guy. But I'm going to have to try and do a little bit of convincing here as I jump into Proces of Big Academy. We made this a challenge as well, by the way, to not pick anyone from Mouse NXT, because this would kind of be like too easy, right? Look.
100%.
All right, like
you could literally pick any 5 of those.
Yeah, I'll pick the whole team. Thank you very much. But I'll go ahead and take Proces from Big Academy, player who's had a wealth of tier 2 experience and now picked up by Big Academy. All things said, and only at age 19, and you wouldn't think that this guy is posting the numbers that he does. Sure, 1.08 rating. You can laugh at that all you want. But as playing the anchor roles on CT side and not really playing the fun roles at all for this team, I think Proces still finds a way to thrive specifically in the clutch. So I'm really looking out for Proces as one of their clutch teams. If I try to fix this up just a tad bit, yeah. but for the one hand, I think there we go. Proces should be probably one of the players to look out for, in my humble opinion.
Yeah, no, I definitely think so. I think that he had just underneath Keto on Big Academy. I think this guy's been doing the most work on this team. Pretty stable player. He's always been able to commit to these fights. Like he's very fearless. I will say that much. And it's great that they have this player on this team. Big Academy is a pretty successful academy operation thus far, in my opinion.
Yeah,
you got Crimball on that main roster, one for the ages, I think. As far as German Counter-Strike is concerned, that guy is blossoming into a very fantastic player. I think Proces can follow suit. Even on the rest of the Big Academy side, I think I've loved watching Aqua play as well.
Yeah.
He's been a great player. He's kind of tapered off since his debut over there at Season 1, Season 2 of WePlay Academy League. But this guy is a very intelligent player. I think that he's got a lot left in the tank. He IGL'd for a little while as
Mm.
well. So big academy as well. I think
They're
that
a threat.
this team we're kind of sleeping on him.
I mean, we can go back to the WePlay recap and see if they can make some damage, because I genuinely think there's a
Yeah.
lot to talk about with this team. In terms of the strengths that this squad has, of course, we're gonna have to wait for the season to kind of go down the stretch. But my pick is Proces. I think he is the kind of is gonna be a consistent force for this big academy team. So I'm excited to see from it. But we're going to move on. I mean, any extra other standouts within this field of players here at the WePlay Academy League? Should I allow Mao's NXT to be a pick here?
No, come on. We got to stick to our morals.
All right,
here, Fab.
sorry.
This is ridiculous. This can't happen. We have
Oh,
morals
dear.
and ethics here and not acceptable, okay?
Okay. Yeah, I mean,
Nothing short of brilliance here.
I will point one player out on Fnatic Rising, and that I have a morsel of hype for. And he'll make his debut, I believe, next week when Fnatic Rising start playing. And that is Volt, who is now joining into Fnatic Rising squad. I think he is a player who actually, believe it or not, has actually done pretty well for himself in UK kind of tier 2-ish in European ESEA Advanced. I don't think people should sleep on him. I think he has some potential to definitely bring, from what I've seen from the player as a whole in years past.
I mean, I've talked to a couple of my UK friends that are trying to figure out what's going on in the scene, and recently I believe Fambit got picked up by an org.
Yeah,
If I am correct there.
yeah.
But yeah. So it's great to see that org got picked up first of all, and I think Volt was a standout player. And everything that I've heard from my boys over at the pond is sorry, over the pond.
Yeah, it works.
Yeah.
You know what? Keep going. You're popping off.
But I've all heard good things about Volt, and I'm excited to see him kind of take a step up, because look, I think Fnatic as a whole is very into UKCS, and they're very willing to take a chance on some of those players. Obviously Kita as the head coach there, and then you also have Mezzi as the IGL. So a lot of UKCS lifeblood being drilled into this organization.
Mhm.
Surprisingly, after the complete upheaval of Swedish CS there, so this pickup actually makes a lot of sense on paper, and so I'm happy to see this on. I will say I will give another standout as well while we're at it. We still have 2.5 minutes left.
Yeah.
Spirit Academy,
Sure.
Zontix has been a lot of fun to watch this guy play. This guy is explosive as all hell. And while Spirit Academy don't necessarily have the craziest results, I think it's a lot of the head trick-esque situation where, look, it's just going to make for some fun Counter-Strike to watch. You got to tune in for these best of ones where this guy just goes off.
Yeah, I mean, I've already kind of jumped on the Juicy hype train, more or less. I pointed out Volt. I mean, Sound is going to be another shout that I've kind of already dropped in on. I think I have some hype behind that player. Also, I mean, LNZ is returning back to the ranks for the Young Ninjas.
We didn't even talk about Young Ninjas, right? They
Not
have
really.
Era coming back from Great Gamer Legion.
Yeah.
He did some work today. This team is actually kind of pretty good. Like they got like a trio of Fragratures. ZTR, obviously, I think he's a fantastic IGL. I think Era he was doing a lot of great work on Gamer Legion. Now trying to kind of just develop in his career. Linus is always a fantastic player as well. I thought he did some good work on Ninjas. He was a very selfless player, all things considered.
Yeah.
And then you got the new players of Adam B and Maxter trying to debut here. So this is not a bad squad by all means, Fi.
No, I mean, Era in particular could just go out there and prove that he's the best opper in that. By far the most experienced. He's been a top 30, at least top 30 in the rankings under the Gamer Legion banner. He's dealt damage to some of the top teams in the world. Wealth of experience being brought in. I think kind of one of the, I mean, you're trying to dig deep into Swedish talent, and they finally found Era in the mix. This NIP team is super deadly, and I think before we close out and maybe head to overtime, where we're gonna answer a bunch of miscellaneous questions, is this the most competitive season of WePlay Academy League that we're seeing?
I don't think that the title contending is that competitive, all things considered. But I think
Okay.
the best of the rest this time around is much more competitive than seasons past. People are starting to catch on to this whole thing of we want to dethrone Mouse NXT from WePlay Academy League, and you can kind of see them trying to ramp up here and see if they can take them down, at least get a series win here or there.
Sure. We'll take us to the bell, and we'll head into overtime. Cover whatever you want, whatever you missed. Pull up an HLTV article, do whatever you please. Let's go ahead and jump in. We can always just hop in. We can always just hop into the 3 box. We can go ahead and gander through a couple of HLTV articles. In particular, one of the funniest articles I read today, that actually that dropped a couple hours before we started, was CS:GO's easiest and hardest CT positions. Which is an awesome HLTV article. Shout outs to Nero, who keeps cranking these ones out. He is a fiend at what he does. Hold on, we'll fix the black screen for just a moment. Have you checked out that article at all, by the way?
Yeah. I really liked what they put out here. It gives me an excuse, that's for sure. Um, I play almost all of these the 5 lowest
Oh,
averages.
yeah.
I think I play
Oh,
almost
yeah.
all of these. So it's like it's perfect for copy pasting into facet lobbies. It's perfect for telling all of my friends that this is why I don't climb. It's just it's the world's greatest article to just say like, hey, look, I got statistics to back me up this time around, and you can't really knock me in any sense of the word. I am immortal in this sense.
That's based. That is really that's quite based. Same here, my friend. Same here, my friend. As I do my very, very best to try and get this up and running. Come on now. Come on now. Wake up. Wake up. Maybe it's not gonna work. Oh well. But either way, I mean, there's also some really fun things like, yeah, Mirage B anchor is the most difficult role, but well, have you seen JDC apparently being the best Mirage B anchor in the world? It seems, which is really a really funny statistic to
That
even
was
bring
a
up.
weird statistic because
Yeah.
to me it's like I could think of so many B anchors off the top of my head that I'm like, oh my god, yeah, this guy 110%.
Hmm.
But I guess he does his job on the B site. I mean, I don't really know. I think it's one of those cases where you say there's a little bit more than just the statistics, but it's a good compilation. At least I think more often than not, though, on all of these, you can make a case that these players belong in what uh, role they've been picked out for on what map and whatnot.
All right. Do you want to? Also, I'm gonna take it might take us the rest of overtime to try and count the number of players that are on LDLC's books. This is sorry, I had to do that. But anyways, they're currently wielding 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 8 on. Look, guys, no, let me stir up the copium. The EG lineup is but there's 15 players, but they're 3 separate teams. This is all one team. I don't know, but
Hey, I can at least cope in that regard, right? In this
sure.
regard, I don't even know where I can begin like deploying the copium machine, right? Like
Mhm.
it's like we've created a back like a foundation, right? And we're gonna build this really beautiful this beautiful mall,
Yeah.
and there is no way to actually say what this mall is going to be. We're going to say that there are some shops that have been registered to join into this heavenly mall. But hey, at the end of the day, what's going to happen is it's going to be abandoned and be put onto stock imagery that this mall doesn't exist. Was that a great analogy? Probably not.
Probably not.
Okay,
Yeah.
we tried, and
We didn't get to
go
talk too much.
LDLC.
We didn't get to talk too much about ITB. We have like a minute left on the run time. Anything to say about the ITB lineup? Which is just like, I guess, really, really interesting. They're kind of moving away from the all British uh core. They're still using Adam 9130 as the IGL, but they're bringing in, I mean, a couple of players that actually have played underneath. Rusty is a longtime teammate of Adam, back on the Gamer Legion days. Any shouts to this? Any shouts to this team? Can they do damage? Can they do it?
Well, yeah, I definitely think they can. I mean, this is a team that was kind of getting sabotaged by Smooya in some ways. I've heard a lot from the pipeline saying that he was intentionally like not willing to play some of these games and just give up just so they don't have to play more of the tournament. So now they have a stable roster, a
Yep.
5-man lineup that they want to go through with. I'm here for it. I want to see more ITB, and I think that might just be it.
That's bringing us to the end of the show, folks. This is the last 15 seconds of it. So if you enjoyed, we're going to be uploading this one to Anchor FM if you want to listen to audio only, or that Paladin's YouTube channel. Go ahead and check it out. Like, subscribe, all that good stuff. That's bringing us to the bell. We'll mash that bell, and we'll be checking on out. Peace.